how do you guys manage it? Like with the hospital and everything, do you guys are constantly like communicating or like even with your friend? Like how do you guys manage this like partnership and like working together?
Okay, so for like green prosthetics and the partnership with the hospital, that's pretty much hands off. We literally touch base with them once a year just to see how it's going. And literally, I thought we would have way more meetings.
Yeah, right.
And
You
right, it's like, and they were like, "Oh, it's all good. It's working great." And I was like, "Okay, I'll send out an email again next year."
oh,
Now
that's
we
cool.
do, because if somebody has an amputation, they call us, we're going into the hospital. And if there's ever kind of an issue, it gets kind of handled right then and there.
Okay.
But for the most part, like that one is hands off. Now I would say that's not typical, right?
Mhm.
That's a little atypical, that in a program or in a partnership such as that you might have more, like even have some benchmarks or have some things. Hey, we're trying to, have some data points that you report on, but they're kind of like, nope, all the patients seem happy. You know what I'm saying? Very informal, which is strange for a hospital.
Right.
Um,
Assume differently.
right.
Okay.
So now with like the golf course and restaurant and stuff like that, since there's 4 of us and we all have different kind of roles in the organization, we have a one of the partners actually lives in Kansas City. So we have uh, once a month Zoom meeting calls where we go over some of our issues. And then there's always a follow-up email about, let's say, if you and I were, you and I owned something, or, owned a company together, and I'd be like, hey, and we talked and Taylor was supposed to do X, Y, and Z. There would be an email that says, hey, before next meeting, X, Y, and Z need to be done. Right. So it kind of puts, because sometimes, like you're having a conversation with your friends, it could spin into a different direction.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, talking about the weekend, right? And
Right.
exactly how partnership meetings
Right.
have happened as well. So we'll talk about the things we want to accomplish, and then we follow up with an email that kind of says who's doing what and when they need to be done. And then we use like Google Drive and like Excel spreadsheets in Google Drive, to where all of us can hop in and be like, hey, I forgot from our meeting last, what was I supposed to do by next week, kind of thing, right? So there's a paper trail of what needs to be accomplished.
Okay, that's awesome. That's really nice because then you guys like have everything documented and everything. So do you?
And I would say that's key.
Yeah, honestly, because you never know. You need to like have something. So could you describe like a challenge that your organization has faced during the partnerships that you've had, like any, and how did you overcome these challenges?
Okay, so for this one, I'll use the real estate company. So Darren, who I own the golf course with 2 other people, Darren, I, and another partner own the real estate company together. And we kind of have different roles. And our partner, who's one of our friends, is not very good at following through with the stuff that we decide as a group. Like we all agree, this is how we're going to do it. And then he goes off on his own and does something differently. And so the challenge has been like, we're not all on the same page.
Yeah.
Okay. So even though we have conversations and it seems like we're on the same page, we aren't. So that's been a huge challenge, because we're actually not losing money, but we're not making as much money as we could with our rental properties.
Right.
So how we've gotten to the point where we're trying, and this is ongoing now, so this is like fresh. How we're trying to solve that is like what we do for the golf course. We're having more like conference calls and much more documentation. Like, for instance, last week I sent out an email talking about what we're charging for rent, and and kind of laid it all out step by step. Here's what we need to do. Please, agree and confirm that you understand, what I just said. Right. And Darren immediately replied, "Oh, looks good. Great. Confirmed." AJ didn't ever respond to it. Right.
So it's like a
Which is kind of a
communication
problem.
barrier.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're still struggling a little bit with that. So, but I mean, all we can do is kind of, is keep pushing the communication